What do y'all think about the audio of BG? Do y'all think it's one person saying that, or do you think it's two different people?
I think it's two. It's pretty much redacted or something
I do
like that.
too.
One person said the guys, and a secondary person saying down the hill.
Exactly. I've always said that. That audio does not sound like one person. I mean, how are you going to sit there and release audio? I mean, I've said this a million times before on my old channels that are no longer existing. I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. How are you going to sit there and release audio of the supposedly killer, right? And say it's the same person saying these things, but if you listen to it, it's two different vocal tones. Like, you can clearly tell it's two different vocal tones. But for some reason, the police want us all to believe it's just one person. That's why I said a couple years ago that I believed a corrupt cop was involved. Because it doesn't make any sense how... I mean, if you think about it, everything that the police has done was to lead people away from the truth. Like releasing two different sketches that look like two different people. Telling everybody in the public that the audio of the supposed killer is one person. And the first thing they said when they gave that speech or whatever, that interview or whatever it was, they said, no, this is not two different people, so don't think it's two different people. They said, this is one person on this recording. It's like they already tried to come out and brainwash the public not to think that way. You know what I mean? Because they knew when the public, I feel like they said that because they knew when the public heard it, they were going to be like, that's two different people. So they had to throw that out there to try to brainwash the public into not thinking that way. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. See, this is what happened when this case first went on. They had the image of the guy walking on the bridge. Then all of a sudden, next thing later, they added down the hill to that guy on the bridge. And all of a sudden, later on in the case, they added guys to down the hill. You see what I'm saying? How I can figure out it's two different people.
Mm-hmm. Connor says, I think there was more than one person. That's why the sketches look different, because they're of different people. Exactly.
Yep.
And another reason that I was thinking it could be like a corrupt government official or a corrupt cop is for the simple fact that, okay, let's say there is two different people involved in the murders, right? You got to sit there and ask yourself the question, how come Richard Allen hasn't given the other person involved up yet? Right? Think about it.
I'll be right back. I'll grab me some coffee, Curly. I'll be on the way back.
All right. So, yeah, think about it. A normal person would have done given the other person up by now. So you got to ask yourself the question, who could possibly be the other killer if there is another killer involved? Who could that person possibly be to where Richard Allen would not spill the beans and not give that other person up? Could it be, like Doug Carter said, this is about power to you? Could it be someone in a position of power and authority? We all know Richard Allen's not a person that's in a position of power and authority. So who could the other player or players be that could possibly be involved? That's another reason why I think if there is another person involved, it's somebody in a position of power and authority. And another thing that everybody's forgetting about is, remember Doug Carter saying a few years ago, remember him saying that when there is an arrest made, it was going to shock both sides of the family and shock the public? everyone was going to be so shocked, including both sides of the family. The arrest of Richard Allen was not really a shock to anyone, other than the fact that we found out he was the one that processed the girl's funeral photos and didn't charge them for them. But other than that, it was no shock to the public or both sides of the family when the arrest came of Richard Allen. It was no like, oh, you know. So if there is another person involved, who could this other person be that's in a position of power and authority?
It's somebody close to the authorities, I bet.
What'd you say, buddy?
It could be somebody close to higher power. Because thanks for mentioning that. Nobody wasn't really shocked when they picked Aria because guess why? Because they overlooked him.
Yeah, and you got to also, and people are forgetting about this too. I mean, now that we know that they have arrested Richard Allen, a lot of the stuff that police said, like what I just explained to you earlier about how he said when they do make an arrest, it's going to shock both sides of the family and the public are going to be so shocked or whatever. Now that they've arrested Richard Allen, we know that doesn't make sense. Why was the police saying all this stuff that we know now does not make sense? I mean, it's just, none of it makes any sense. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And then it seems like the only people that's being backed up on YouTube are the ones that's going with the bogus lie of, what is it, the Odinists or whatever. Like remember when they was talking about not long ago about how that the sheriff's deputies that worked at the jail or whatever, where Richard Allen was locked up at, were wearing Odinist patches or whatever. Remember when that was talked about? You still there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. Remember when that was talked about, when they were talked about that the sheriff deputies that worked at the jail where Richard Allen was locked up at was wearing Odinist patches on their uniforms? Remember when they said that?
Yes.
All right. Like I said before, I've actually worked as a sheriff deputy before in the past, and I know for a fact that you're not allowed to just put random fucking patches on your uniform like that.
No. That's a good firing right there, if they had all that on them.
Yeah. Like, I know for a fact that when I worked as a sheriff deputy, if I would have came to work with an Odinist patch on my uniform or some other crazy fucking patch, my superiors would have been like, you need to take that shit off. And if I see it on you again, we're going to fire you. You know what I'm saying? They don't tolerate stuff like that. You can't just put random patches on your uniform because you're representing the county or the city or wherever it is you work. You represent them, the government.
Thanks for putting that out there, Curly, man. That's like, for example, if I was a guard over there at the prison, jail, etc., and I used to ride a BMX bike called a DK 6-pack. And that's like if I had a DK 6-pack patch on my uniform, Xbox Live, PlayStation 4 logo on my uniform. I'm gone. They fire me. I ain't coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't allowed to have that. The only patch you're supposed to have on your uniform is what the jail and prison supports.
Exactly.
Not on the outside of the places.
Connor just made a valuable point, too. He says, my original channel got taken down days before the news article came out about Odinism. That's kind of suspicious. I thought that was suspicious too, because a lot of the stuff that the news came out with about the Odinists and all the stuff that they said was like the same shit that I had said 2 years prior on my podcast channel. And I found that kind of odd how just a couple days before they came out with that news article talking about Odinism and all that crazy shit, they take my whole channel down and swipe 1,000 of my videos down off of YouTube and online everywhere. That is really suspicious. I agree. It's like it was planned. It's like they did it on purpose because they didn't want me to have any proof of nothing. Like I can't say, oh, I said that 2 years ago and I got video proof of it because they fucking took all my shit down. The first video I ever did when I researched the Delphi murders, the very first video I did was titled Delphi Murders, Strange Tracks in the Land or something like that. And when I had Google Maps pulled up and I was looking for routes that the possible killer would have taken or could have taken, in that video, I was the only YouTuber in the true crime community that got close to Richard Allen's back door of his house. Nobody wants to talk about that.